All right, so Mr. Pradeep, how's it going, man?
I'm doing well. How about yourself?
I'm doing awesome and amazing all at the same time. I'm telling you, it's been a great, great life.
Oh, that's
Um,
great.
yes, 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 man. So just really excited to be able to have you. Had an opportunity to read through your book, The Complete Man, and man, it's just some awesome stuff. So let's just start with telling me a little bit about yourself. What's your story?
Sure. So I'll kind of start with where I am today. So I'm a husband, I'm a father, I got two young kids, I'm an entrepreneur. But I spend a lot of my time helping other entrepreneurs and business leaders, particularly men, because I find that a lot of men these days are struggling. And in a lot of ways, in today's society, and especially in Western society, it's not always appropriate to be men these days. And so there's a lot of men who are struggling, don't know where to go, don't know in terms of the resources that they can find to help themselves. So I spend a lot of time helping men in a lot of respects. But I also have the business side, so I spend a lot of time in the businesses. And I my story is that I grew up just like every other kid. I grew up with parents that immigrated over from India. I grew up on an orchard. But the one thing that I saw, my dad was an entrepreneur, but he also struggled with alcoholism.
Mhm.
And so he was a great dad when he was sober, and then when he drank too much, it was a completely different story. And he was a big dude. So if he drank too much and something set him off, it was like a bomb went off in the house. So as a young boy, it was interesting because I was always trying to figure out what made my dad tick, and then I started to study neuroscience and psychology, and then went into business and was in the executive world, and then started my own firm where I was basically helping other entrepreneurs be successful. So fast forward, that's what I'm doing today is working with business leaders who want to grow their business, make more money, but also want to be better leaders, better husbands, better fathers, and just better people in general, and be more fulfilled and happy in life.
Oh man, that is absolutely awesome. I'm gonna piggyback off of something you just said because I've seen so much. It's amazing how we share kind of interest in just really trying to impact and empower men. In today's society, it's common to witness men in prominent roles experiencing periods of decline, especially when dealing with addictions or habits or struggles or things like that. How can men navigate their internal struggles without negatively impacting their professional and their personal lives?
Wow, it's understanding. I think the first of all that they impact each other. So having if you're going through something in your personal life, it is going to impact your business life. And the best thing to do is identify what's actually not working rather than trying to mask it. And I think that's what guys do, right? We the biggest thing that we do is that we try to continue to deal with it or ignore it, thinking that it's eventually going to go away, or we're tough enough that we can continue on and it's not going to bug us, it's not going to hurt us, but eventually catches up with us. So we have to deal with these issues and we have to deal with these challenges when they're actually small, not when they're actually getting bigger. So avoidance is the number one strategy that guys use, right? Because we're meant to tolerate things. The other thing is having a supportive group. And I think that's the other part that we are challenged with as men. And I don't think we do this well enough. And even if it's not a group of other men that you can go to, just having one person, a mentor that you can go to in life is, I think, so powerful. I was lucky enough, especially when I was younger, to have mentors, good people in my life. One was my grandfather. I had some uncles, for example. I had some good friends throughout life. And these aren't, we're not talking about super wealthy guys. We're not talking about
Mm.
super successful
Right,
guys.
right.
We're talking about guys that just had a good head on their shoulders. And so I think we've missed out on that in today's society where we don't appreciate, especially older wisdom. Like we discount our elders these days.
Yes,
And if we
yes.
can actually go and actually take that wisdom on, I think we can actually deal with these challenges a lot better than we have been because now we're going to the internet, we're going to all these different places rather than real people in our life that have gone through real things that have a lot of real wisdom.
Right, absolutely. Man, you're saying so much. Let's unpack that a little bit. The number one issue, avoidance, right? Is it safe to say that typically men avoid confronting their situation or dealing with their situation because they don't normally have a safe place to release it? a safe place to talk about it, a safe place to open up, a safe place to confess. I've seen so many men, that are struggling with so many things, and even myself, I've had my own history of things that I've had to deal with, and as you say, we avoid it. And typically, when we've made attempts in the past to try to deal with it, it is the reaction to it, or the response to it, that is not in a safe, embracing, loving, supporting way all the time, that makes a man just shuts back down again, right? And they
Oh, yeah.
typically, yeah, shuts back down again. And it's almost like once we shut down, you can't never get us to open back up again. And then we find something else to fill that space. And it's typically work, it's typically success, it's typically, whatever it is. And if you're dealing with a struggle or an addiction, then sometimes it can actually be that addiction that becomes the filler for that. But talk about how important it is for men to, one, have that safety, that safe space, and then two, if they have made attempts to have a safe space and it failed and it wasn't safe, to be able to get up and try it again.
I think that's super important. So first of all, safe space is important, even though we're guys.
Right.
So a safe space is important, especially in today's society, because masculinity and men are being attacked. We're being attacked for being strong. We're being attacked for being direct, right? Even when men do want to address an issue, now we have to sugarcoat our issues because we're afraid of actually, maybe it's some kind of harassment charge. Maybe it's, maybe we need to be a little bit softer in our approach, whatever it might be. Like all these stereotypes now
Yes.
that men are no longer supposed to behave like. So we are walking on eggshells in general now as men. Uh, and I'll use a real practical example. Because we've worked with a significant amount of men and done studies and research studies around this, is many men, for example, struggle in their relationship. They're in a
Hmm.
crappy relationship. And I know because I've had friends that have gone into rehab and got stuck with substance abuse, particularly because they didn't like their relationship with their spouse, their wife.
Hmm.
They basically came home and they weren't being appreciated. And
Wow.
I'm not saying that they weren't doing anything wrong. I'm just
Hmm.
saying this is a situation. They weren't being appreciated. And the only way that they felt that they could have an out or deal with that issue is to drink or maybe do some other drug as a result of that, rather than actually coming home and saying to their wife, hey, look, I don't like the way you treat me. I deserve a little bit of respect. I deserve a little bit of appreciation. And that behavior that you have is not actually doing our relationship any good. I need you to stop. We, I don't think a lot of guys have that luxury to have that type of conversation anymore.
Right.
And
Right.
so now we have to back up or back off on that. I'll use another example because I like to be practical.
Hmm.
Even in my own life, I found, and I learned this very on, in my wife and I, we have had our challenges in the past, and we've gone to therapy in the past. And it was really interesting because my background is also in performance psychology. And when we went to
Hmm.
these therapists, I always found myself having to defend myself because I
Right.
was a strong man. And those therapists automatically pigeonholed me because I was strong. I had strong morals and character, and I wasn't going to bend on those because I believed that I was doing the right thing. And I would be the one that would be perceived as perhaps being, I'm going to say, too rigid,
Hmm.
or being the one that was causing the issue. And I realized something. I said, you know what? There's a massive stereotype against men. And when I went into these sessions, for example, I came out feeling even worse, feeling like I was being attacked for being a man.
Right. Right.
And that's when I started to do more research. So here's the other thing. Finding a good space is important because if you go to a therapist, they're not all equal. They're not
Hmm.
all equal in terms of skills, right?
Yes.
Um, Sources, if you go to a source, whether it's on the internet or a blog article, whatever it is, they're not all equal either. So the
Yes.
quality of the space or the people that you are talking to is very, very important as well. And sometimes we can go to the wrong person and get the wrong advice.
Right.
And so I do feel like a lot of men are feeling challenged in that way because they don't know where to go. They don't
Right.
know where to have these conversations. I have had two of my best friends that I had no clue had substance abuse issues. And we grew up with good values, with good family relationships, and they just had struggles in life and
Hmm.
it caught up with them. But it's a result of certain things that they weren't able to let go of, that they weren't able to
Yes.
talk to other people. Like I'm their best friend and I do this work. and they weren't
Mhm.
even feeling comfortable to come to me. So we are in hopefully I answered your question,
Yeah.
but having a safe space is absolutely critical. And for men, there is nothing wrong with that. We are not weak because we want a safe space. If I'm going to share something here, I think that's very important. And it comes down to the quality of relationships. The two biggest, I'm going to say, foundational factors for a healthy relationship, whether it's between you and your mentor, or you and your spouse, or you and your therapist, or whoever it is, a friend, is the first one is safety.
Yes.
And then the second is trust.
Yes.
And that goes for, it doesn't matter if for a man or a woman, adult or a child, the first part is safety. And if we don't feel like we have a safe space, going back to what you're talking about, it's hard to build that trust. And we as men need that as well.
Absolutely. So many things that you say. Oh my God, this is really good. I think that we need to do a better job as a society and a culture in validating men's masculinity, allowing it, as you said earlier, to be okay to be a man, like, and not made to feel like we're too strong or we're too tough or we're too this, or you have to, dummy yourself down in your aggression sometimes, or your masculinity, just to feel accepted or welcome or appreciated or approved. And so I definitely agree with that 100%. The other thing with that is I want to kind of talk about the counsel part. I'm really, really, really big on that. Just not only just having someone to talk to, but as you stated earlier, being able to have those older voices of wisdom. I call it voices of wisdom that can speak to us, that can give us some guidance, some navigating through life. Now, another thing you said that I want, and I'm tying it all in together to just kind of get your input on this. Oftentimes men don't have a blueprint laid out for them on what to do when crisis do hit. You talked about your friends that you have that were all brought up in a great situation. Like even myself, like I had the most amazing mom I feel in the world, but it kind of prepared me to be a great guy morally and integrally. But at the same time, when life start lifing, right, when challenges came, when your concept of what marriage and relationship should have been didn't go that way, and it didn't work out that way, and your expectations were disappointed and let down and were not met, we don't know what to do. We don't have enough people. Even if you're looking at it from a coaching space where you work at and I flow in from men, there's not a lot of coaches that's coaching men. We have 90+% of them are just dealing with the women and what the women need. Even the men that's doing it are dealing with what the women need and what the women need. And I'm just like, oh my God, like there's not enough platforms, not enough conversations that are harnessing the type of energy and space we need as men to be able to just have the support we need to navigate through life. And tell me, how do you feel about what we can do as a culture? And when I say culture, I'm going to go more deeper and say starting with family structure, right? Because I believe it all starts in the home, then in our community, then in our country, so to speak, just like in our whole culture and the way we see things through, of course, the lens of social media these days. But what can we do to be more supportive in creating that type of space that a man need, that we would really feel safe, secure, and okay in being able to be expressive, being able to say, hey, like you said to your spouse, I'm not happy. And I'm not saying I'm not happy because I want to leave you. I'm saying I'm not happy because I really want to be able to communicate where I'm having a need at that's not being met, with hopes that you love me enough to give that to me so that we can work on this and continue to let our love build and our love grow and have a happy marriage and a successful family. What do we need to do to make that type of environment possible?
Oh yeah, that's kind of I'm going to say a loaded question, because I think we have pressures from so many different angles. We have pressures from the top in terms of the liberal movement. But I'm going to
Hmm.
go back to going back to what you were saying. It all starts at the home, and I think so. Here's my observation and perspective, because I was talking about this before. Family units have fallen apart even prior to this. So I'll
Hmm.
give you clear examples. Over 50% of children in the US are being raised without full time fathers. Like that in itself is something we need to address, because a father is such a powerful role in a household. So is a mother, absolutely. But a father has a different role. So I think that is one thing that we need to address is how do we, A, have better relationships between men and women? No one teaches us this stuff.
Right.
Like we don't get relationship skills 101.
Absolutely.
No, or life skills 101. We have to learn that. And so I think one of the things that we need to do is this is educate our children on this, first of all. But it's also things like family dinners.
Mhm.
Wow, like so much. You know how many people I know now that don't even have family dinners? They kids are in one room eating dinner, parents are in another, or they're watching TV or whatever that looks like. So family units are starting to fall apart. Technology is another piece. And why I'm sharing that is because if we are not in a tight in-person family situation, well, then it's hard to build that bond, right? And so I find that we need to do better, both men and women, to keep family units stronger, to push out technology a little bit more, and bring in that unifiedness. Now, having a good group of friends, guy friends, is important. And I'm gonna say it's interesting because when we've worked with men, many of them have said they've got a good group of guy friends that they either play sports with, that they either are doing business with. But when it comes to opening up and having like
Yes.
real in-depth conversations,
Yes.
very few, very few. I'm going to say it's extremely rare for men to have that.
You
And
know,
so,
let me just ask a question
yeah,
real quick right there. Not to, I don't want to cut you off. And I'm asking this because I base a lot of what I give off of my own self and what I prefer and what I feel when I'm dealing with, my approach on men. But I want to just ask you this since you kind of brought that up. Do you think it's typical for men to desire to have that deep level of intimacy via conversation and transparency and vulnerability through to a woman, like his spouse, typically, preferably over what we'll call a homeboy or a man or someone that a more masculine. How do you feel about that? And again, that's not a true or
um,
false. I'm just throwing it out there.
yeah. So I'm going to tell you from my experience and again our research is they do want to have that openness and vulnerability with their spouse.
Yes.
They do want to be able to share their deepest, darkest fears, challenges. But here's a challenge because we as men, this is kind of the dichotomy of men, is we are also wanting to be the strong one. That's our masculine nature. We are also
Yes.
wanting
Yes.
to be the solid one, the one that people come to, the one that your spouse comes to and says, you are my man, you are my rock. And so any little bit of, I'm going to say, lack of self confidence or
Mhm.
fear in us men, we don't want to open that up to the women that we are with
Mhm.
unless she's not going to judge.
Right. Right.
If there is judgment in that, if we feel she's going to look at us any less than we are or
Mhm.
should be, we're not going to do that. So it's a very, very tricky situation. So ideally, I would say I'm the firm believer that your spouse should be your best friend,
Right.
the other person that you have your most intimate details with, because we're talking about a soul connection. How are you
Absolutely.
supposed to have a soul connection if you can't be completely open and vulnerable? It's almost impossible.
Right. Right.
But I find that relationships today have changed because relationships before people used to, and I'm not saying this is a generalization. People used to have to fight for survival. People used to have to fight to put food on the table and keep their families together. Therefore, they had to be there for each other. We're not fighting for that same thing anymore, right? Fighting more for a different kind of lifestyle, right? And so couples don't have to be as much of a team these days. And so we are seeing this whole movement where men have their own lives, women have their own lives, and it's more cohabitating than
Hmm.
actually being partners in life. That's a long-winded answer, but I'm going to be very honest. The guys that I see have the biggest challenges are the ones that want a deeper connection with the woman they are with to be able to be open and vulnerable, but they
Yes.
don't have that. And
Right.
part of that reason is also not that they don't have the challenges, is that women themselves now have been trained differently. They've been brought up
Oh
differently.
yes. Oh
You
yes.
don't need a man. You're supposed to be
Yes.
independent. Your man is supposed to be the provider, but shouldn't be the provider. Like it's screwed up, right? Like it's so messed up.
Yes. Yes.
And so men are confused. They don't know. They don't know what to do. They don't know what kind of conversations to have with their woman. It's just there's a total state of confusion right now.
Man, that is so good, and I think it's good if we just kind of share this insight when you talked about how, okay, so we both agree that the men preferably will want that with their significant other, their spouse. Um, but then when they give it to them, if they're judged, then they go back to, I'm not going to open up again, right? So I think one of the things that women should consider when we're talking about dealing with this support and environment being created for them from the house structure is when a man open up and when a man begin to be vulnerable and transparent and share with you those fears, those insecurities, those doubts, those struggles, that the first thing you ought to respond with is affirmation, right? Validation. Just assuring him that nothing that he just shared about his weakness caused you to see him as weak. Nothing that he just shared about his weakness caused you to see him as less than the strength of the house, the strength of the marriage, the strength of our family, right? And actually twist it in a way to say, hey, you being able to do this actually makes me see you stronger. When men are able to see that our ability to be transparent and vulnerable and broken in our relationships is actually a form of strength, it's not a form of weakness, then I think that it will empower us to be more able to do it, more comfortable with doing it, want to do it more fluently. So I think if we want to give any advice from just a house structure environment on how we can be more supportive, is what is your initial response when a man has shared those moments with you? And if that initial response, as you said, come off judgmental, you've already lost them. I think it need to be very supportive, very affirmative as far as you're still the man, you're still strength. I still look at you as the head of this house, and nothing that you have shared make me feel any type of way different. And that will begin to cause that man to feel comfort in that space and then begin to move into a place where I want to share more. And next time when I feel some type of way, I'm gonna feel like I don't have to hold it in. I can share even more, and we can start with it from our home, right?
I think what you said is absolutely brilliant. I think that's exactly it. That's a beautiful way of putting it together for partners of men out there. And if I can just add two things to that, is we as masculine, the masculine energy, let's just say, is an interesting energy because it's all about releasing. And it's about putting that energy out there. So when men get frustrated, they need to release it. And it's a natural, I'm going to say, part of the universe for men to want to release it with the feminine energy, because the feminine energy is receptive. That's what it is. But if the feminine energy is defensive, which a lot of women are these days,
That's so
it
good.
blocks that energy from being expelled. Like, I'm not going to expend my energy if it's not going to be absorbed. If
Oh
my
man.
spouse, let's just my wife, is going to put a defense mechanism, because that energy is going to bounce off. It's not going to go anywhere. It has to be absorbed by something. And so that's what the feminine energy is, absorbing that. And so when I have my deepest frustrations, and I've shared this with my wife, when I have my deepest frustrations, I need to have that feminine energy, whether it's a conversation or it's an intimate moment. Maybe it's, having sexual intercourse, whatever that is, it's a release of my energy that she's able to absorb. And once I'm able to release that, then I can go back into my natural state. That's the one thing. And when men, see, this is the thing with men as well. We aren't chronically in this state. Let's just say if a man goes through a tough spell or a tough spot, and it's a momentary thing. We all have frustrations. We all have downfalls. We all have challenges. And it's in that moment that if we go to our spouse and we need to release that energy, if that doesn't happen, it continues to build up. And then you will see a massive pent up energy, and that will come up out in a negative way in some way, shape, or form, whether that's going to be an argument or substance abuse or whatever that looks like. So being able to release that energy is important. The other part to that is there's a difference between a man going through a challenge and doing it sporadically. We will all do that. Let's just say a man comes out and has a challenge once a month and needs to vent with his wife and says, I'm not feeling so great about myself here. My business is falling apart here. And you know what? I'm not feeling too good. And she says, you know what? I'm here for you. Whatever you need, let's do this. Next day he wakes up with confidence and he goes at it again. That's all guys need, really, right?
Right, right.
The challenge becomes, again, if women aren't able to absorb that energy, but also from a man's perspective, the masculine perspective, if he's going through that every single day. Because now it goes from a challenge to more of a burden
Mm.
for the feminine energy. So that, in that instance, the man is showing up every day not having confidence, not feeling good. That's when the feminine energy is going to question the masculine energy. That's when you're actually going to have doubt. And so it's important for men to understand we can't just show up and vent and complain all the time.
Hmm.
It's something that we need to use wisely. So think of it as tokens. We only have
Yes.
so many tokens we can use. Use
Yes.
them wisely.
Hmm. Yeah, man, that's so good. That's good. Let me bring this up. That's in your book. Your book introduced the concept of premium goals. Can you explain what differentiates between these goals and typical goal settings, and how achieving them contributes to a man's fulfillment?
Okay, so there is just like anything else in life, there are different levels and quality goals.
Hmm.
And I'm going to use a real practical example here as well. I was talking to a gentleman earlier on today who was reaching out because he needed to get some insight and perhaps some help. One of the first questions I asked him is, what's the vision that you have for your life? Is it written down? And so that vision wasn't written down. So, first of all, that's important because that's a key concept of what I talk about in the book, being a mindful alpha male. And an alpha male is about creating your destiny. You have to be able to create your destiny. If you don't have a vision for your life, you're not going to be able to create your destiny. It has to be
Right.
written down. From there, we create goals. And goals are important for two reasons. A, because our brain is a goal driven organ. And I talk about that all the time. If you don't have a goal, your brain doesn't know where to lock onto.
Yes.
Our brain is literally like, think about this from perspective. It's like having a sniper rifle and it's a telescope. Your goal determines where you're pointing that sniper rifle. Like you have to have a goal because that's where your mind is going to go. Simple example. If you are looking to buy a blue GMC pickup truck, what are you going to see more of? Blue GMC pickup trucks.
Hmm.
It's just naturally, or GMC pickup trucks, because you've put that goal in your mind and our brain automatically opens up the information to be able to absorb that. So
Yes.
there's a brain science or neuroscience aspect behind that. The second part to this, though, is that goals are of different quality. And so this gentleman that I talked to, I said, okay, do you have goals? And he said, yeah, I got goals. It took him a few minutes to bring up the goals, first of all, because he had to look at a document. I said, challenge number one, if you don't know your 1 year goal off by heart in your head, that's not necessarily a goal. You have to know it
Right.
because that's what drives your decisions every single day. Secondly, when we looked at his goals, he was just reading them off. I'm like, did they even get you excited? Like, there's no point in having a goal unless it creates energy within you. And
Yes.
that's a premium goal. A premium goal is one that gets energy within you. So there has to be an emotion, a strong emotion or emotions tied to it. Because we know through studies that goals with strong emotions people have more persistence, resilience, and consistency towards that goal. So that's one aspect. The second is there's got to be a strong purpose. It also has to include some kind of a challenge. That's what we talk about when it comes to a premium goal. If you include those elements into your goals, you're excited, you have a purpose behind it. So now you're going to be able to overcome challenges. But it also has a challenge. Like you're like, yeah, you know what? This is going to make me grow. This is pushing me a little bit. We need those to have strong goals because goals determine our decisions and our actions. That's the bottom line there.
Oh man, that's so good. And it's so interesting how men are wired, right? It's so amazing because even in having these goals, as you said, one of the most important things is it bringing a challenge. We do that in every aspect of our life, even in relationships. It's kind of like we're not even interested in the women that's not going to be a challenge for us to get. It's like we are more attracted to those that we know are going to be a challenge. If it's a challenge, then we're going to go after it. And so, career challenges, we driven by those things. And so that's just amazing. And here's what I want to say to that, because you gave so many great things. I think men need to also consider, within the realm of the scope of what you just shared, making sure that those goals are things that are coming from within. I think oftentimes as we're going through trying to figure out who we are, our identity and our life and our path, we tend to pick up just ideas from external. oh, this person says they're successful at doing this, so we run and go do that. Or this person said I may be good at this, so we run and do that. And we kind of do that, often until we finally just get kind of tired and exhausted. And then we'd be like, okay, what do I want to do in life? But typically that happens much later for a lot of men. But kind of starting early, and even encouraging your sons to dig deep and figure out what it is inside of you that wakes you up every day, that you're driven and you're passionate about, and you're zealous about. What are those things? And start developing those things, because those things within themselves become so self motivating, right? Because it's coming from within. And so I think it's important for men to take what you just shared and also apply it to what's in you. It's kind of one of the things when you said, when the man was talking about what his goals were and he was reading, he was like, you don't know it off the top of your head. That's a problem, right? If it's in you, it ought to just come up like, this is what I want to do. This is what I desire to do. This is what I want to accomplish. And then you writing it out, keeping you accountable to what you wrote out and your goals and your timelines, and then also making sure that you write it out and set it in a place where it's going to challenge you to do more and be greater than where you are right now in your comfort space.
Yeah, that's great. Intrinsic part is so important. I think ultimately, and studies have shown this, the intrinsic motivators are far more powerful than the extrinsic, and that's just I'm going to say science has now backed that up. So what you are saying is absolutely critical. If we actually do one thing with the men that we work with, we get them to go away, and I do this personally myself every single year. I go away for 3 or 4 days, no family, kind of cut out technology, and I actually reevaluate what I want to do for the next year. And
Wow, that's
and
good.
and, and what I mean by that though is I have to forget. So I have to forget and put aside intentionally that I'm a husband, that I'm a father, that I'm a son, that I'm a brother, I'm a business owner, all of these things. And I have to go back to who I am at a core. It's like ripping off or peeling off the layers of the onion and go to the core to say, what do I want? What do I want out of
Oh,
life this coming year? Because particularly men and women do this too, is we are created by social structure and social pressure, and we are putting our goals together or identifying goals based on social roles. So I'm putting my goal together as a husband, as a business leader, as a father. But what about me as a human being? What about me, Pradeep, as a human being? What do I want? Forget about if I wasn't a husband. What if I wasn't a father? What do I want? And then I layer on, okay, I'm a husband. Okay, I'm a father. So a lot of guys can't get past those top layers of the roles that they have in life. And a lot of the times when we talk about the goals that they want, it's not even the goals they want.
right,
It's a
right.
goals that either society wants them to have, or it's a goal that they believe society wants them to have. Right? So it's a really interesting dynamic there.
Man, so let's use this as a formula. So how often do you say you do it? You go away?
Once a year.
Once a year, okay. So I guess I'm okay. I was trying to see if you give me permission to do more than that, but
Yeah, you can go. Hey, twice a year is best. If
right,
yeah, you're gonna try to explain that to your significant other.
right. You going away by yourself again? Okay, all right, yeah. But I agree with you, and it's crazy because I've never heard anybody share it. But I agree with you 100%. I just started this probably 3 years ago, just for myself. It is so necessary. It is so needed. I think we as men burn off so much energy just consciously and subconsciously, just on a daily, regular basis, and we don't even understand how much wear and tear it does on us physically, psychologically, emotionally, spiritually, mentally, like in every aspect of our life. And we just keep going because, as you said, too, oftentimes we're living up to the expectations of others for us, right? What they expect for us to be, what they expect for us to have, what they expect for us to do. Even as us showing up in our home, we're showing up with what we feel they want us to be, and we never get a time to decompress, to unload, to clear our head, to just rest, to relax, just a moment to not have to think, not have to process. Like, I found that to be so healthy for me in this season of my life. I just need a day that I just don't think. I force my brain to take a break and just clear my mental and spiritual and emotional canvas and just see what comes up. right? And I think that's so healthy, and I want to encourage so many men to consider that, in whatever way you can, with work and with family, whatever. But just find it. If it's just 2 or 3 days out of the year, I think that's not too much to ask out of the amount of days we have in a year to pick from. But do that for yourself. I think it's extremely, extremely healthy and to help us reset and recalibrate and make sure that we're being whole ourselves. I think this is a direct reflection to why men tend to live less, earlier, die sooner. We just wear ourselves out, man. And so thank you for that contribution. I think a lot of men need to hear that and need to take that into some real consideration.
Yeah, thank you for sharing. I think you've given them permission to do that. So hopefully the guys
Yes.
listening do that.
And if you're struggling, just show your wife this video and then just tell them like, "Hey, these guys said I need to do it." No, oh my God, we're gonna start getting all kind of emails like, "Well, you got my husband doing?" Okay, it's all good. So your work integrates the aspect of neuroscience, high performance psychology, and spirituality. How do these disciplines intersect in your approach to coaching individuals for success and men? How do you use these skill sets that you have to implement strategies that you give for men?
Yeah, I guess I'm going to back up and give you a little bit of history. My grandfather so he was in the Indian Army for 30 plus years, and he immigrated over, and we lived in an extended family. He lived with us. And his father, so my great grandfather, was a spiritual teacher in India for 60 years. So that was part of our lineage. My grandfather taught me spirituality at a very young age. And so he also taught me. So this was the interesting part. Spirituality and philosophy are very much intertwined, right? If we take a look at it, whether it's
Absolutely.
religion, spirituality, and philosophy, they're pretty much intertwined. And now science has actually started to support much of the philosophy or spirituality. For example, meditation or mindfulness exercises. People have been doing it for over 2,500 years to 5,000 years, roughly. And now science is saying it's the number one thing that you could do for your brain is practice mindfulness. 8 minutes
Yes.
minimum a day, 3 to 4 times, will actually change the structure of your brain. So that's just one prime example. That's one of the things that we do when we work with men is say, just to practically, do you practice meditation or mindfulness? Because that's going to help you perform better, reduce your stress, enables you to have more clarity and creativity. So those are the elements that we talk about. And I think if we break them down, science is basically just showing us how our biology and mind works,
Right.
right? The mechanics behind things. Philosophy is essentially it's basically a way of life. They're basically principles or ways of life. And psychology is our mental attitude or the way of thinking. That's essentially what it is. So now you're combining your way of thinking with your biology and also leveraging the way of or principles of life. If you create those that are in alignment, that's how you become powerful, right? So now we're thinking the way we need to be thinking towards our goals. We're feeling the way our body is actually aligned with it. And we're also, I don't think we appreciate philosophy enough because the way philosophy, if we think of them, the principles of living, when we are not aligned with the principles, we automatically know it. Like we know, let's
Right.
just say we speak the wrong way to our kids or maybe we just shout. Our body knows it, right? Our body knows that I probably shouldn't have done that. So now you're going to feel guilt or shame or whatever it is with yourself. And now your energy level goes down,
Right.
right? So when we are in alignment between those three elements that I talk about, your mindset, your body, and your way of living, that's when guys are extremely powerful, right?
Right.
And so when a man is aligned, you can tell. You're around him and you could sense his energy, right? You could sense he's on a mission and he's going to get what the job done and he's got this vibe around him that you want to be around. Like, this guy's got something.
Yeah.
And you can tell when guys are not aligned, right? You can tell when something's not right, whether they're feeling guilt or shame, or maybe their mindset is off, or maybe they're just physically, they're not in prime shape or whatever that looks like. You can tell when they're not aligned. So and it all comes down to energy. You can tell that energy from a person. So when we are aligned, we bring those elements in alignment, we feel extremely powerful as men. And that's what we try to do is get them into alignment, because the more often you are in alignment, the faster, the better your progress. The less often you're in alignment, or more often in misalignment, you're going to be dragging your feet. You're going to be making bad decisions. You're not going to be in a great mood, and life just isn't as fun.
Right. That is so good, man. That's so good. You know, one of the things that I've noticed that for all men, we just have this thing within us that we desire to be successful. Okay, we just want to be successful at whatever it is that we do, and I've been seeing just over the years an extreme increase of desire for men to be entrepreneurs, right? And this is what I, love about what you offer in this men's space as well, is through your coaching and through your writing and your books, is this motivation that men need with the things that they deal with in entrepreneurship as well and business. So I want to shift just a little bit and talk about this, because I believe there's so many men that's going to be watching that are trying to balance this thing out, right? Many entrepreneurs, especially men, struggle with self-doubt. They don't, they want it, but they don't believe that they can really do it. Whether it's because of the lack of money, the lack of support, the lack of encouragement or validation, the lack of whatever. There's a lot of self doubt there, and in my experience, I can go as far as say this: it's not so much like a lot of people telling you you can't do it, you can't do it. I think it's the internal, always running, always listening voices that's like, okay, I don't know if I can do this. I'm not sure. I'm not confident in myself, right? So, what advice would you give to those that are facing this fear, this self doubt, that they don't know if they can really be successful at doing this, being an entrepreneur, being a business owner, and a husband and a father?
Okay, so there's a there's a number of things to that. So first of all, and I'm going to kind of get the rough stuff out of the way here. Not everybody is built to be an entrepreneur,
Right,
because
right,
being an entrepreneur requires a different type of mindset and resilience and tenacity.
right.
And not everybody is built that way. Can people change themselves and get to that point? Absolutely. But it requires discomfort, right? So my natural mindset, my natural being is not an entrepreneurial mindset. Like that's not it. I've built that over the years. Mine is, let me give everything away. But that doesn't work when you're a business owner, right? It's not actually very healthy. In fact, when I first got into business and I had that mindset, it worked against me because I was not making good business deals. I just wanted other people to be successful. And it took me a lesson to learn, I got to actually be making money here too. So
Right.
that part is important. The other part is we have specific beliefs that either drive us towards our goals or actually hold us back. And it's important to know what those beliefs are. And they fit into different categories, and I'll get into that. But first, let's talk about confidence, because everybody has self-doubt. The difference is, what is our level of confidence in relation to the challenge or the self-doubt? That's what it comes down to. So let's just say you and I are walking down the path and we come up against a cougar. We're out, just going against, or we're going on a trail, and we come up against a cougar. Well, we're both going to be sitting there, saying, this is not a good situation. And that cougar looks hungry. But confidence, one of us may have more confidence based on our experiences from the past, right? What we're telling ourselves in the current moment. We're also going to be impacted by who we're around. If we're
Right.
both, let's just say, excuse my language, crap at our pants, we're both going to have less confidence.
Right.
But if you're showing more confidence, and I'm going to look at you, I'm like, okay, he's got confidence. My confidence is going to boost up as well, right? And then also saying, if one of us has come up against a cougar in the past and had some experiences, our confidence is automatically going to be boosted. And so there's different elements to confidence. It's our mental self-talk. It's the words that we use. It's the wins that we've already had. It's a support network. We're also, I'm actually giving very psychological elements for people to
Yes,
implement
yes.
to improve their confidence levels. The other one is taking a look at other people that have already been in the situation. So if we know that let's just say we have a mutual friend. Hey, James was down this path and he came across the same cougar and he kicked that cougar's butt.
Right.
We're going to have more confidence because we're thinking, hey, James did it. I can do it too. So those are the practical elements that we can use to actually improve our confidence or raise the level of confidence. So self-doubt, we all feel it, but there's mechanisms and there's real practical things that we could do to raise our self-confidence. And I just shared those, right?
Yes.
And so
Absolutely.
the other part to that is our belief systems. And there are core beliefs that we need to address that are specific questions to uncover which of our beliefs are actually holding us back. And I'm going to name some of them. A, do we believe that what we want is truly worth it? Do I want it
Mm,
bad enough? You got to ask
that's
yourself that
good.
question. If you don't, you're not going to get up off the couch. You're not going to have that energy. B, do I deserve to have it?
Oh man, that's good.
Okay. So there's a lot of guys that want stuff, but they might not feel like they deserve to have it because maybe they've screwed up in the past. Maybe they hurt someone. They feel like they have to pay back karma, whatever it is. Maybe it's the next life. They don't feel like they deserve it.
Wow.
Third one, is it 100% my accountability and responsibility to make it happen? Because if it's not, now you're giving your power away to somebody else,
Mm,
right? So that's one other aspect. The next one is, can I make it happen? This is the old confidence question. Do I have the skills to make it happen? It's just one of the questions. One of the So there's other questions here. So it might not be confidence, it could be the other questions. Then it comes down to, do I know how to make it happen?
wow.
Because you might have the confidence in yourself, but you might not have the gameplay or the game plan. Therefore, that's the one that people get tripped up on the most is
Mm,
I don't know how to do it. And
yeah.
by default they opt out or they just stop actually making progress because they don't know how. So that's the one that people trip on the most. The next one is, do I have the support to make it happen?
Yes.
Because even though there's a lot of tough guys out there, but rarely do a lot of tough guys want to do it themselves.
Mm-hmm.
Like they want help. They want someone to be on their side. They want a
Right.
cheerleader. They want a partner. I can tell you, those guys that say no, I'm going to do this myself. That's not what they truly want. There's something else in there that's driving them to do it themselves.
Right. Right. Some
Most
experience.
guys, yeah, so most guys want to have a support network. But if
Mm-hmm.
we don't feel like we're going to have a support network, that's another challenging belief that we have. The next one is, do I have enough energy? And because we're all going to have challenges, we're all going to, but it's like, man, I don't know if I have enough energy to take on those problems or challenges. I
Mm-hmm.
got so much else going on. I got enough problems dealing with my wife and my kids. I don't know if I can do that. Right. So those are the questions to ask ourselves because each one of those questions is a belief. And if we are answering yes to the question, that's a positive check mark. If we are answering no, for example, I don't know how to do this, it's on the other side of the equation. And then we stack it up. We say,
Mm-hmm.
how many of our beliefs are no's and how many are yeses? If we have more no's, we're not going to make the progress we're looking for.
Right. That is so good, so good. Listen, we're coming up to a wrap up, but I want to just talk about one of the things that you said. My God, so many great things, but the one about using someone else's success story, I think we need to do so much better with what I call exposing ourselves to success. Um, the exposure of success is so motivating. It's so encouraging to know you see somebody that did it. You heard somebody's story, how they came from where you are possibly and made things happen. They're living in the house you want to live in. They're driving the car you want to drive. They have the business and the amount of employees you want to have. All these things are factors that you have to bring yourself into those type of environments, and that environment itself becomes encouraging for you to move out of the environment that you're in. Oftentimes we become limited or constrained within the parameters of where we are, and we can't see beyond where we are because we can't see beyond where we are. And so you have to put yourself in situations where you can actually see it before you see it, so that it can motivate you to continue to move forward, continue to get up, continue to tell yourself when you got these list of no's over here that these no's can actually be a yes. What's stopping this no from being a yes? I can't say it can't happen for me when I see somebody that was in the same situation I'm currently in and it happened for them. So it kind of even the playing field. So it's the exposure of success, and that's why I encourage people to look into people like yourself, read your book, things like that. These are the type of things that you want to feed your mind and your spirit with, so that you can be motivated. Other than that, if you just have left with where you are and what you have, you're typically not going to be motivated. So I just want to encourage people that are watching, again, especially men, because we both, I think, are just really, really concerned about the strength of our men. But expose yourself to greatness. Expose yourself to people who have made it, who's accomplished more than what you have, and you will see how much that would inspire you to keep on moving day to day.
That
Can you
I think
talk?
that's extremely
Yeah, I was just going to
that's
ask you about that.
that's extremely powerful. I think that is one thing that if someone was to ask me, what are a couple things that men can do or that we can do to be more successful, more powerful? That's one of the things is expose yourself to other successful people, other powerful
Hmm.
people, other people that are living the life that you would like to have similarities with. I have one caveat with that because what I see a lot of people do is, especially men, is when we start to compare ourselves in a negative way compared to someone who's already achieved success. So there's a positive side to that, which is great, and we need to do that. There's also a dark
Hmm.
side when people say that person has that and I don't. And so
Hmm.
a lot of guys will go down the wrong path by comparing themselves. And
Hmm.
that's not the point of what you're talking about. The
Right,
point
right,
of what you're talking about is be inspired in a positive way to drive you, not to compare. So
right.
that so the comparison piece is something to avoid. I just want to share just a simple example. My son every Wednesday goes to this thing called Ninja Warrior. He's 10 years old, and it's kind of like on TV. What do they have? I think maybe it might even be called Ninja Warrior, where they're swinging along and they're doing these different gauntlets and they're trying to get to the end as fast as they can. Right? These guys are
Hmm.
extremely athletic and almost like gymnasts. Well, he does that on Wednesdays. One of the exercises is they have these different platforms and ramps that the kids are supposed to run up and grab onto the top and pull themselves up. And these are pretty interesting things because some of them I can't even do. And I was watching this one kid over the last few weeks, and he was making so many attempts to get to that top one, the biggest ramp, and he was missing it. Like his hands would just get to the top and he would just fall down again, and hands would get to the top and he would fall down again. Well, last time we were there, last Wednesday, he got to the top and he grabbed on and he got it. He pulled himself up. The everybody just automatically, parents, kids, just started clapping and they were way to go. Guess what happened after that? He did it two more times right after that. And another kid did it right after that. And so what happened in that moment?
Wow.
This was such a powerful experience. Not only did he'd been trying to crack this for weeks. So he did it once, he did it twice more after that, and then another kid who couldn't do it did it right after him. That just shows the power of
Yes.
people and exposing yourself to other people and their greatness. It is extremely powerful. And we're talking about kids here. So
Right.
think about what we can do as adults.
Right. Man, that is so powerful. Oh my God. It's been such a pleasure to have this conversation with you. As we're wrapping up and closing now, I want you to just share with people, how can they locate you, find your book, all that great stuff. I know we know, but the people, the audience will love to know, how can we find you?
Yeah, sure. So best way is you can check out my website, purdeepsangha.com. You can also connect with me on LinkedIn. Those are the two main ways to get in contact with me. If you connect with me on LinkedIn, just please just send a note saying you saw this or heard the podcast and I'll accept the invite there. Those are the two best ways.
Awesome stuff, man. Pradeep, it has been such a pleasure. I'm definitely looking forward to doing this again and just talking some more, having some more dialogue and conversation, about, men in particular. Man, it's just been amazing. But thank you so much for your time. Thank you for your contribution to our community and our audience. And just wish you well, man, and have an amazing rest of your day today.
Yeah, thank you. And I appreciate you being such an awesome host. You asked some awesome questions and we had some great conversations. So thank you.
Absolutely. Absolutely. Listen, everybody, go and get your copy of the book, The Complete Man. It is going to complete your library. Trust me on that. So go and get your copy. Make sure you support in every way you can. There's so many things that you can get from out of, this awesome man. And I just want you to go and support and feed your spirit, your mind, your being, what is needed to be successful. Okay. So thank you again. And we'll be definitely talking soon.